Hello everybody, welcome to Red Tool House. On today's video, we're going to look at setting up a farrowing barn for our imminent farrowing that we have. I've got two of my four that I'm pretty confident have settled. Merida here, who she's been a proven sow. She's produced a lot of good litters. She is bred, as is Mercy here, who also is a proven sow. Her mother was a really good sow, so they've thrown good litters quite a bit. So they have both settled, missed 2 heat cycles, so I feel pretty confident that they've settled, which should give us a farrowing date around November the 24th. But we got to get prepared for that. So here's where I'd like to get your all's help. This is my tractor shed, what I've called tractor shed. This structure is about, oh goodness, maybe 15 years old. And I used to park my tractor up here. It was even before we had pigs. Once we got pigs and wanted them to have access to here as part of the pasture, I stopped parking my tractor up here because they're a little tough on things. I was afraid they're going to chew the tires off the hateful sucker. So the thought is, let's go ahead and embrace this. The pigs have been hanging out here. My sows have been hanging out here as a shelter, just a place to get out of the rain and out of the cold in the wintertime. But looking to convert this to an actual farrowing stall. So I want to discuss some layouts, some things that I know I need, and maybe you guys can comment below or even send me a message on the website, redtoolhouse.com, give you some advice, your suggestions. You know, you look at something so long, I'm afraid I'm in the position of I can't see the forest for the trees because I've just thought this over and over for so long. So maybe it'd be helpful to start out with, for those of you that aren't familiar, haven't watched the channel long enough, where we are. Sawmill's down there, barn down behind those trees. House is up on the other ridge. And then of course here's our tractor shed. This is a road that just goes up to the north pasture. Majority of the property is this way. The pigs are currently on this pasture over here in the sunlight. That's where I just was with them when we did our intro. So they're hanging out there. They do not have access to this entire side. Everything you see in the shade, they don't have access to. So first thing we ought to do is address dimensions, because I don't even remember exactly how big I built this 15 years ago. Let's start on this side where I've got a nail. So we're looking at roughly, we'll say just under 16 feet from post to post, including the posts that way. Sounds about right. I was thinking 15. Shows you what I know. $20 feet. Exactly 20 feet. Blind squirrel gets a nut every once in a while, right? Okay, so 16 by 20, roughly, is what we have to work with. Well, what do we need? So I made a little list of things that I know I'm going to need up here. The obvious is water. I don't have water lines here. Obviously, I've got a lot of mountain that way. If I had an impoundment up there, I could run water down. I don't. The obvious is going to be rain catchment. So I'd have to install some gutters. Looks like I won't even have to extend my rafters a little bit because my roof hangs over that a little bit more. But I can do rain catchment. I've got an extra IBC tote. Can set that up and obviously catch rain and then gravity feed into a watering system or just into buckets that I could pour out. Well, the second necessity I'll need is electricity. And really the only reason why I need electricity is with a November 24th, the end of November farrowing, we can have some pretty cold nights in West Virginia at that time. So I've got the workshop here in the barn less than 30 yards, 40 yards away. So I could run electricity up here, no problem. I could even run it through the trees if I felt the pigs were going to try to mess with a wire laying on the ground or in some simple conduit. So I could do a makeshift even if it's just several extension cords. The heat mats really aren't that much of a draw. So I could do that, whether I'm going to do heat mats or heat lamps, we'll see. So electricity up here shouldn't be an issue. Well, the third thing I'm going to need is a little bit of, I hate to even call it pasture area, maybe it's corral area or paddock area. The two sows, my sows are really good about not wanting to go in the barn. They don't go to the bathroom in an area that they're laying. They normally come out here. So I don't want to have to deal with a messy barn. If I just close them in here for a couple weeks while we waited farrowing, then of course we'd have a pretty messy barn. So I want an area for them to come out, and just something about not being stressed out. They're used to being on so much open pasture. I'm just afraid of the stress levels if I lock them up for 2 weeks. Again, you may be saying, well, why are you locking them up for 2 weeks? If you know the history of our channel, our pigs always farrow early. Sometimes it's even a week early. So I don't want to have any issues. I don't want to have any risks. I want to sequester them in here, have them in a spot so they definitely have to farrow here. So the idea is to come in and build some corral area. So I'm thinking, okay, I've got this side, which is relatively flat for West Virginia before you break over the hill to the workshop. On the other side of this building, behind the side-by-side, is another little area that's about the same size, but you kind of have hillside that breaks over on 3 sides, and then of course the mountain goes up behind the side-by-side. So trying to figure out what makes the most sense. And with that, how much should I do with electricity? How much should I do without electric fencing? Ideally, I'd like to put up solid wood panels, again, to reduce stress. If they get stressed out about electric being close by, it's just not good. So the fourth key point really is layout. How am I going to lay out this space, this 16 by 20, to accommodate 2 sows to farrow? Ideally, we're obviously going to put some walls up, but just trying to figure out how to lay this out, because I need 2 stalls, of course, for the pigs, for the sows to feel separated from one another. They don't like to farrow right against one another. That's, at least in my experience, they don't. But then also we need a creep area. I'd like to have a common creep area. And for those of you who don't know, a creep area, of course, is just an area that the sow can't get into. So usually you just put boards around an area, and you have lower boards moved so the piglets can go into that area. And that's where you usually have your heat source. That draws the piglets away when they're not nursing. They're looking to just stay warm and pile up. That draws them away from the sow. They can hang out there, get warm, less chance of getting crushed. And of course, they go back to mom when it's teat time. So a common creep area would make sense. So if I'm going to divide this 20 by 16 in half, logically it'd be right here, then there should be a creep area that takes out a section of that. So Merida's piglets can get over, and Mercy's piglets can get over into this area of creep. Usually in November, by that time our rainy season starts to come on, so we have a lot of mud to contend with. And you can actually see, because I don't have rain catchment on this shelter, how much erosion cutaway we've had. This obviously was a ground height, and now we've lost almost a foot. The pigs complicate this because they get in here when this is muddy. They like to make wallows, again, having access to all this. So my thought is, getting the pigs over here, they're not going to have access to any of this portion where I would drive up. That keeps me from having to drive through a bunch of mud, deep mud. Still be a little bit of mud, but deep mud that the pigs have created. So I need an entrance, of course, to get the pigs in. So whether that's a corral on this side or corral on that side, that's where there needs to be a gate so I can draw them in, first and foremost, to lock them down. But I think kind of leaving this a solid wall on this side is my thoughts. Well, another area I'm still contemplating and debating is the level of enclosure. You can see just with the sows, I just had a windbreak here. That's why there's this half wall, so they could come up, kind of hang out behind the half wall, not be in direct breeze, even just some tin here to knock the wind down. Now, obviously it'd take more material to enclose this and even enclose the eaves here, and maybe I should. Ideally, it'd be nice to have a fully enclosed structure like this, but weighing that against the time, it's mid-September right now, so that gives me basically 2 months to get this done. So should that be the priority? I've seen a lot of people, of course, with farrowing huts outside. They just simply come in and you make a farrowing hut that's only about 4 feet tall. That way the heat is retained. You're not trying to keep something like this so warm. Now again, being November, I don't think we're going to have super cold days. We usually just have the really cold nights. So we could still get up in the 60s and 70s during the day in November. So I don't know that a full enclosure would be necessary as far as heat retention. And again, if the piglets have access to the creep area, stay warm, probably not a big deal. But just trying to contemplate that, what that looks like, what makes sense. Do I tear this out, and do I put actual siding material on the barn? So what I've done here is just done a rudimentary drawing in Sketchup. So you can see, obviously I didn't put the roof on the building. This would be the tractor shed slash farrowing barn. Just the 6 main support posts you see here. This would be the front of the building. The side by side was over here. Workshop was over here to the left. So I think I'm going to go with a paddock area here to the left, and would have a swinging gate, of course, that swings this way, so we can hopefully corral the pigs in, obviously lure them in with feed, all that kind of stuff. Obviously not going to have solid panels around. Well, those panels will represent some sort of board, solid board, heavy-duty board fencing there. So have the paddock that they come in, and then to actually get under the shelter to get inside the building, we'd have this gate here. So there'd probably be a door here. It wouldn't be completely necessary, but probably should have one. And so here's my thought process. So if the first pig comes in and of course goes into this area here, then I can close this gate and keep her kind of sequestered there. This would be the creep area, so as the piglets are born, they can gravitate toward this heat. So while this gate's closed, of course, the next pig could go on down here through this gate and have this area to farrow, and of course access to the creep area as well. And I lay this out simply because I think if I can make this strong enough, have this gate when it's open close this area off, and probably should go ahead and have another gate here, just so if somebody's here and need to close this off, then they can't get out. But use this as a confinement area, a choke down area, if I have to do any type of medicating, assessment, those type of things. And I have a nice tight area there that pig can still turn around a little bit if this is, I think I've got this at about 30 inches, but that'd be a confinement area there if I'd need to use it. So I think with that layout, that would work. So as far as human access, for me to come up and check, then I would need to come through this gate and through these gates. I could possibly put some peekaboo door type things here so I can look in without coming in to disturb. But that remains to be seen. Again, still debating whether or not to completely enclose all the way to the top and actually make this an enclosed structure. So if you have any comments or suggestions, again, really seeking advice here, some wise advice on maybe something I'm missing. Like I said, I've studied this for about a year, thinking of this plan, and I'm afraid I can't see the forest for the trees here. So just leave me a comment and let me know what you think. Well, that's going to be a pretty decent project, and the clock's ticking. It hasn't rained in the last 7 weeks. Hopefully it won't rain for the next 7 weeks and I can't get any of this done, but it requires some mill work and, of course, some design and layout. Well, I appreciate everybody's input. Take care.